Let me see if yeah, there it is. Okay. Cranking, cranking, cranking. Okay, looks like we are live with day two, everyone. Thanks for joining. I'm gonna go ahead and click record here. Welcome to day two. Yesterday was amazing. It set the standard and kind of a foundational day of how to plan out a year. If you enjoyed yesterday, please leave comments. I know people are trickling in. Reminders are just going out from our team as well as Josh's team. And if you're watching and joining us in the Zoom room, you'll notice that the chat is intentionally turned off. But we do want you to interact with us on Facebook. So it looks like Jordan and the team just put the Facebook link on there. So I want to see everybody commenting, telling us what city and state you're checking in from. Also tell us if you're in the early stages. I have a soft heart for all the entrepreneurs that are starting out because it can create a lot of confusion. It's a lot of hard work in those early stages. But without any further ado, welcome to day two of this 3-day workshop. Josh, we're excited to get the ball rolling, man.
Absolutely pumped. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Can you give us a quick rundown of yesterday? I see some few new names, and I do want to talk about a couple of housekeeping items as well, but give us a quick rundown of yesterday as our first step.
Absolutely. So yesterday, what we did is we spent a lot of time mapping out the goals, KPIs, big picture, right? Really getting clear on what we want to accomplish in 2025 in our agency around like the revenue, the most important thing, right? How much recurring revenue, how many clients, how does that break down in terms of what we need to charge, in terms of the number of new clients we need to get every single month? We put that onto a tracking mechanism we call the sales and retention tracking sheet. And we've really hopefully got super clear. If you missed day one, go back, watch it, go through that exercise. It will lay the foundation of like really what you want to build and how to get there.
Yeah, and Josh, you've dealt with and coached hundreds and thousands of agency owners, and I know you were one of our keynote speakers at our masterminds. Can you tell us if this is a common thing? Do agencies plan out their year properly? Tell us a little bit about, some of the things that you even see at the mastermind.
Yeah, I think I think a lot of times agencies don't, right? They kind of say, I want to build a business, I want to build recurring revenue. Maybe they've got an idea somewhere, like a vague idea of how much money they want to make, but they don't put the pen to paper and they don't build it out. And that's where, the high level SaaS mastermind that you guys do really takes obscure concepts and brings them into concrete. And I had the opportunity to attend, I think one of the original, maybe the first or the second one,
I think
and
the
it
first
was a game
one.
changer. Yeah, it was a game changer.
Absolutely. And by the way, we do have two masterminds coming up in February. There's one in Dallas and there's one in Dubai happening for those of you that are international and maybe you're a bit more fancier and you live out in Dubai. But we are having two masterminds both in Dallas and Dubai this upcoming month in February. If you would like the links on more information on that, guys like Josh Nelson and plenty of other experts have came and spoke at these events for us. And the key thing that I always take away from people that come to these events is they plan ahead. They have a game, kind of an idea of what their quarter looks like. They know how to translate that down to their team. And we often see agencies do really well when they're mapping things out the right way. So, Josh, what are we going to learn today? I know we're going to talk about the program, the offers, different business models. Today could be a bit heavy for the brand new person that's an entrepreneur, I think.
Hopefully not, right? So we started off with the goal, right? And I think it's great to have a goal, right? Without a goal, we get stuck in commentary, but a goal without a plan is just a dream, right? And so we want to make sure that we've got the right plan, that we've got a proven plan, that we've got clear on what we're going to execute. And so while yesterday we were talking about goals and targets, today we're going to be getting into the seven-figure agency model, right? And we're really going to walk you through some critical decisions you need to make, some critical approaches you need to have in the business. And so we're going to talk about the seven-figure agency model. We talked briefly about it yesterday. We're going to go deeper and make sure that you've got all of the right fundamentals in place. From there, we're going to talk about program packaging because I think this is an area where a lot of newer agencies struggle. It's like, well, I've got high level and I've got all of these different things we can do, or maybe I've got agency expertise and I had to do websites and SEO, but how do we package it in a way that we can charge a monthly recurring fee that people will actually benefit from, that will actually be sticky, right? That they'll actually stick with us long term. And so we're going to spend some time there. We also added to the agenda here a niche selection brainstorm. I think a lot of agencies heard me talk about, hey, you need to be in a niche. You need to position yourself as the go-to expert. And there was questions, well, what's a good niche? How do I choose the niche? And so we're going to add some time there to help you brainstorm that niche selection process. And then we're going to talk about how to sell your agency services. So as you're clear, this is the program I'm going to be selling in 2025. This is the market I'm going to sell to. How do I sell those services? How do we position those services and actually ask for the business and get the credit card authorization form? And so that's what we're going to be working on today. I think these fundamental skills will set you up for success in the new year. Give me a dollar sign in the chat if that sounds like a win, if that's what you'd love to get into on today's session.
I love that. You know, one of my favorite, Josh, I don't know if I ever told you this. You know what's one of my favorite things about you? You don't just talk theory and strategy. You often have some sort of collateral with all of your trainings. Like, and in this one, you have your workbook. Even in when you came into our masterminds and you're teaching, you had a lot of handouts. What I like about that is it's a guided, teaching. It's not just like one person just talking the whole time, which I love. So if you are all in agreement with me, give me a one in the chat. If you love the workbook, if you haven't had access to the workbook, look at the streaming description. There's a resources link there. And if you go there, you'll be able to download it. You have to make a copy of it so you can edit it and things like that. But I'm a big fan of your workbooks and collaterals, Josh.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I know I like to learn by exercises and by having places to write things in and to see visually what goes along with what's being taught. And so I appreciate you bringing that up. And so, guys, yes, very important. If you didn't download the workbook and the tracking sheet, we're going to be continuing in that workbook today. Go to highlevel.com/Josh Nelson resources. If we could drop that into the chat on Facebook as well as here on Zoom, I think that would be helpful for everybody. All right, tracker is great, says Elika. Amazing. Okay, so a couple of rules of engagement, especially for those of you guys that weren't with us yesterday. We all know our most valuable asset is our time. And you guys have all dedicated your time to be here live with me today. Me and Paulson are here live. This isn't like a fabricated recording. I'm here, Paulson's here. We're looking at the chat. We want to meet you where you're at. But I'm going to ask that you be here now, right? We've all got a million things going on. Separate things happen on Facebook, on Slack, team requests potentially. Close that stuff out. Have the Zoom or the Facebook feed open. Have your workbook open. Give this 100%. The other thing I'm going to ask is to put on your participant hat, right? Maybe you've heard some of this stuff before. Maybe you've done some of this work. Be an active participant. Give this your undivided attention. Do the exercises. Think about the decisions I'm going to ask you to make. And I promise you're going to get more from today's session than you would otherwise. Just give me a yes if you're okay with those rules of engagement. Actually type yes into the comments wherever you happen to be watching this right now.
And also, in case if you are brand new and never met Josh Nelson before, he charges thousands of dollars for coaching and training throughout the year, and the material that he's teaching is from his own inner circle group. I am part of that community, so I saw it. I was like, Josh, you got to come and teach us. And he's being totally generous and just completely giving this away for free. And as an expert, as a coach, one of the weary things you feel often is when you give away something for free, people don't assign value to it, and they take a lot of action when they actually pay for it. So just lean into this experience because Josh is being totally generous, and I'm appreciative of that. And that's something that you'll find in the world of high level education is often free, but it shouldn't be misvalued. Okay, so please lean in. Shut everything off, go all in on this. This possibly could be the most important 2 hours of your entire year, at least.
Love that. Love that. Yes. And it's my honor to be here and share this with you guys. And I really hope that you'll take to heart what he just said, right? The value is there, but you have to respect it and you have to action it, right? And so that's what we're asking you guys to do with what we're sharing. And so we talked yesterday a little bit. Paulson, should I get right into it, or is there anything else we want to
No,
cover?
no, let's go right into it. We drop links in the comments for those of you that wanted information about the mastermind in Dallas or Dubai. Feel free to take note of that, but let's go right into it. Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. So we talked yesterday about the seven-figure agency model. And I really believe when you've got the right model, everything changes, right? In my first agency, Developcom web design hosting company, I had the wrong model. And so I spent 4 years selling websites, doing hosting, sitting in BNI meetings, chasing prospects down, but never having the result, like really never able to get past $10,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And when I had the right model, everything changed. And so I want to go a little bit deeper today on that model and make sure that it's anchored in for you, because the right model can make all the difference for you in 2025 and beyond. And so when you think about your agency or your SaaS, I really think there's three things we want. Three things we all want from our agency. Number one is money, right? The money to pay the bills, to live our desired lifestyle. Number two is freedom, the flexibility not to have to work 40 hours a week, the flexibility to be able to take travel to work from wherever you want. And number three would be impact, right? Knowing that we're providing massive value to the clients that we work with, providing massive value to the team that actually works with us and supports us. We're having an impact. We're not just making money, but we're actually helping people around us. Just give me an impact in the comments if that's important to you as well. Like, obviously we all want money. Obviously, selfishly, we want freedom. But just type impact if it's important to you that your business also is having a ripple effect that's impacting the lives of the clients that you serve and the team that you represent. Sam, Jake, keep them coming. I see Sam wrote impact. Charlie, impact. Awesome. Yeah. So in order to do that, right, in order to really make that a reality, we've got to have three things set up in our business. Number one, we have to land clients. We have to have that process to be landing clients on a consistent basis. Number two is we have to deliver results. And I really think in today's market, it's more important than ever that we deliver world-class results, that we generate a tangible, measurable return on investment, but we also do it in a systematized way. And then number three, we have to retain the clients. We have to retain those clients long-term, because sometimes it's easy to sell the client, but it's also easy to lose the client. And if you've got a revolving door where you're losing one client for every two clients that you get, or one-to-one, you get a client, you lose a client, you get a client, you lose a client, that is extremely disheartening, right? And there's no way to scale in that environment. So once we figure out how to land clients, deliver results, and retain the clients we have, then it's about scaling, right? It's about putting the systems, the procedures in place, building the team so we don't have to do it all ourselves. And so I want to spend a little bit of time, and hopefully my visual is large enough that you can see it okay. I'll be sharing my screen as it makes sense throughout the day. But I want to help you think through this and find the missing components in your model. And so when it comes to landing clients, there's three things we have to solve for. Number one is we have to fill the funnel, right? We have to identify our prospects. We have to put out value-added content. We've got to have prospects coming in, scheduling in, getting warmed up, scheduling appointments. We've got to fill the funnel. Number two is we have to build authority. People want to do business with the expert, the proven expert in their industry. People will pay massive premiums to deal with the very best of the best in their industry. And so we have to build authority so that we've got the content, we've got the books, we've got the proven case studies where people look to us as the expert. And now, I know, Paulson, we've got a spectrum here of people just getting started, people that have been at it for a long time. I don't care if you don't have one client yet. You need to be thinking about how you're going to build your authority status so that clients are willing to pay a premium to work with you. And then number three, you've got to dial in your sales process. Right? We've got to make sure we can take a prospect from scheduling in to actually saying, I see the value you can give me, and giving us a credit card or giving us an ACH form. That way they can get charged, right? And so this is what we have to do to land clients. If you can fill your funnel, and we'll talk about the ultimate agency funnel, if you can build authority through books and publishing and other positioning assets, and then you can dial in your sales process where you can convert at 30% or higher, you will be able to land clients on demand. And that's where the money comes from, right? When you've got that, the money will take care of itself. We're going to be talking about this whole process throughout the course of the next 2 days, right? Today, we're going to be going deep on the sales process and really giving you clarity on how you take somebody from they don't know you yet to saying yes and giving you a credit card authorization form. When it comes to landing clients, I'd love for you just to kind of think in terms of good, not good, bad, right? Just kind of red, yellow, green. Where's the missing component, right? And oftentimes, maybe we don't have enough appointment flow. And I'm like, that's a big gap for you. Maybe it's your authority. Like sometimes we've got appointments, but we're not converting because they don't look at us as an expert yet. And sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm getting appointments, but they're not saying yes. Let me know what's the biggest opportunity for you right now. Just put that into the chat for me. Paulson, anything you want to add here on landing clients, kind of the big picture?
Yeah, I think one of the things that um, you all have to know as agency owners or aspiring agencies is until you get to a world of inbound leads for your agency, you're not in the market, right? So automatically there should be leads that just show up in your Slack channel or your pipeline inside of High Level or wherever you've automated your inbound lead system. So how do we bring in inbound leads? Like Josh said, there's traditional methods that allow you to go into publications, create authority, create a personal brand. But that's not the only thing, right? There's emailing, there's cold calling, there's walking into BNIs. But it's important that you go all in on one or two strategies depending on where you are. So if you're brand new starting out, obviously you're not going to go write a book and become an author and get on BBC, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the lane. But for that person, if you're brand new starting out, the best thing to do is focus on building case studies. How do you do that? With your own inner network, maybe doing a Dream 100, maybe personal development and network that you have that you're leveraging. So I would love to get a temperature check here, Josh, on where people are in their clientele and just be I want you to be mindful. This is not an opportunity to boast about how many clients you have or don't have, but in the comments, could you put down how many clients you're at or have ever served? Even if you have churned out a ton of clients, that's okay. That's an internal operations problem. But from a sales standpoint, how many clients do you have or have you landed in the past? Give us, if it's totally fine if it's zero. You can say one, you can say five. You can say 1,000 for I see a few names that are big heavy hitters here that are appreciating the call. Yeah, feel free to tell us where you are in your journey because that allows me and Josh to kind of navigate through today and tomorrow on the lens of like what should we teach? Should we talk to the advanced agency or the beginner? My gut tells me the brand new entrepreneur is going to have, more of a need here from our training. So,
Yeah.
but I just want to confirm that. Tell us where you are in your journey.
Looks like Mario's got 28. Richard's got none. Let's see, a lot of getting started. So we'll make sure we really gear it towards, the basic fundamentals. I am starting big picture, Paulson. I apologize for that, but we will
Of
get
course, yeah,
into like very specifics on how to build
yeah.
your authority and how to go out and get those points.
Yeah, and also, one thing we mentioned yesterday is everything we're sharing is not an indication of past performance that you're gonna go make a bunch of money. Like this agency game is one of the most hardest personal development journey I've ever been through personally, and I'm sure Josh feels the same way. So it's
Yeah.
really hard to build a marketing agency. So it's important that you listen carefully of what kind of lever to pull and push depending on where you are in your journey. But don't assume you're going to make a ton of money. Just learning from our examples and things like that, just as a revenue disclaimer. But let's get going. Let's get going.
Yeah. And I saw a couple of people mention it was kind of hard to see my screen, and you told me that yesterday. So I'm just going to go straight into sharing the screen. Are you
Oh,
seeing the
sweet.
right screen now? It looks good.
Yeah, perfect. Let me go ahead and adjust my window here. Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
So we got landing clients, right? This is what we're going to talk about in terms of landing clients. From there, we got to deliver results, right? And this is where the way you choose to deliver will make or break your business, right? And that's why having high level can really help you systematize. It can really help you do it in a streamlined way and stand out from the competition. And so, number one is we've got to choose our model, right? We got to make sure, we're not making it too complicated. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel for every client that we have. We're not trying to do ad hoc project work, but we're choosing a model, which I'll talk about here in just a second, that can be rinse and repeat, that can be iterated every time you get a client. Um, then we got to systematize it, right? Because if we want to create freedom in our agency, we need to choose the model. We need to systematize what the delivery looks like so that we could potentially hand it off, so that we could remove ourselves from the delivery side of the business and do what we do best or do the things that we really want to do with our free time. So we've got to systematize, and then we've got to build a team, right? If the objective is to go to seven figures or multiple seven figures, recognize if you want to get there and have freedom, you don't do that all as a solopreneur, right? You do that by building a team that can execute at a world-class level on your behalf. And when you do that right, that's really where the freedom starts to come into play. Like that's where you start to have that flexibility to say, hey, cool, man, I can do this stuff. I can get these clients and I don't have to personally do it myself. So that's the delivery side of the equation. And then from there, to retain the clients long term. And I think a lot of startup agencies, yes, you need to focus mostly on landing clients, but you also need to recognize there's no point landing a bunch of clients if you're going to lose all of those clients in the long term. So number one is world-class onboarding. The way that you come out of the gates with your prospects, with your clients, when they say yes, when they give you that credit card authorization, will make the difference of whether they're with you a month or whether they're with you for years. And so you want to think through in advance, how do we get the usernames and passwords? How do we kick things off? How do we welcome with appreciation? The communication rhythm, especially if you're selling agency-related services where they're paying you a monthly fee greater than $1,000 per month. Well, you need to be checking in. You need to be showing the value. You need to be seeding the vision without over-communicating, without putting too much data in front of them. And there's some smart ways to do that. And then you've got to think about your client management process. Like, how do we build that account management team? How do we have the right KPIs so we don't have to do it all ourselves? I really think that, the way you deliver is what creates the freedom. The way you retain is what's going to create the impact, right? Because if clients are signing up with you and they're staying with you long-term, it's because they're getting value, they're getting results. And, if you're retaining clients, you are having a big impact in your business, in the community that you serve. And then finally, we've got to scale, right? And that's where you're building your team, you're building your playbooks, you're putting all of those pieces of the puzzle together to bring that into reality. Just wanted to hit this big picture, and then we're gonna zoom in here in just a sec. Anything you want to add on this model, this big picture model, Paulson?
Well, I mean, the only thing I have to tell you, regardless of where you are in your journey, is setting appointments and closing appointments. Nothing else matters. As much as we're sharing strategies and structures and systems and SOPs and KPIs and reporting and account management and finances and like projections, none of that matters. What really matters is setting appointments and closing appointments. Just remember that's the North Star you
Mm,
have to focus on. This stuff that we're teaching, maybe 4 or 5 hours a week, is really what you should spend time on building inside of your business, or so otherwise you're going to find yourself over planning and getting away from sales activities, because what actually matters is the sales activities, right, Josh? I'm sure you find people overbuilding when they don't even have a client yet, right?
yeah, 100%, right? If you don't have clients, your main focus is right up here in landing clients. So awesome. So that's big picture, guys. I know a lot of people saying, hey, let's get into the how-to. We're going to get into it. I like to start big picture, and we're going to get high level, and then we're going to get eye level. So a couple of other things. And this is a concept called the rule of ones. This was taught to me by Taki Moore, the $1 Million Coach, who learned it from Clay Collins from Lead Pages. And they looked at the fastest growing businesses in a variety of markets. And I have applied this to my agency, Plumbing and HVAC SEO. And the agencies that I know is over 137 that have gone to seven figures and multiple seven figures. And what we want to do is focus on one thing in each of these different areas. And so one niche, one target market, one client avatar. In my case, it's plumbing and HVAC companies. One lead generation strategy. There's lots of different ways to get leads for your agency, right? You could do Facebook ads, you could do cold calling, you could do networking, you could do public speaking. Ideally, get one lead generation strategy that resonates with you, that you know that you can do, that you can really do well and get that fully implemented, get that fully launched. One conversion mechanism, which is how you sell, right? One specific way. We're going to walk you through the seven-figure agency sales process today, but just know like you want to do the same process again and again. And then one program. And a lot of you guys are like, yeah, I could do one niche potentially. I could do one lead generation strategy. But program-wise, I feel like I should have an infinite supply of things that I sell into the marketplace where I'm meeting the client and I'm kind of figuring out, I'm ad hoc figuring it out. The fastest growing agencies that I know have pre-engineered a program, and that's what they're selling again and again and again. That's how you're able to systematize it. That's how you're able to make it better. And so one program, we're going to talk about program packaging here in just a sec, and then 1 year. And I think a lot of us as agency owners tend to get shiny object syndrome, right? There's a million new things. There's a million different ideas. There's a million different strategies, but the fastest growing agencies wind up sticking with it for at least a year, that one niche, that one program, that one sales process, and continue with it for at least a year or until they get to seven figures and beyond. So that's the rule of ones. Just give me a ones in the comment if there's at least one idea there that resonates with you. Say, okay, simplify to multiply is the key thing that I really want you to take away from what I'm saying there. We talked yesterday about the money math, so I'm not going to talk a lot about this. A lot of different ways to get to seven figures. The higher your monthly fee, the less clients that you have to have, the easier it is to get there. And I really think there's a sweet spot between $1,000 and $3,000 per month. In any vertical, people are willing to pay that amount. And if you can get 5 clients per month at $1,350, that will put you on a seven-figure run rate in just 1 year. Or if you can have 33 clients paying you $2,500 a month, you've got a seven-figure agency. And so, don't feel like you've got to have 100, 200, 500 clients. Dial in a program that adds tons of value, that's extremely sticky. You can have less clients and still be at seven figures or multiple seven figures. And then the fundamentals, at least in my opinion, choose one niche, monthly recurring revenue. Don't take project work. Like in my case, my first business was project work. They would pay me a web design fee, and then they'd pay me a small hosting fee, right? And the money never added up. But when I'm coming to the market with a value-added program that's not just brochureware, but I'm going to generate revenue growth with a tangible impact, I can charge a monthly fee for that. I'm not worried about the one-time payment and the partial deposit. Anything you want to add on this, Paulson? We're gonna get into it, but I just wanted to go deep onto the model.
Let's keep going.
Okay, great. And a great example of this is Austin Hauser. He runs Base Coat Marketing. He was a generalist agency, right, selling ad hoc programs. Decided to choose the painting niche, so he works with painting contractors. That's why they named Base Coat Marketing. Decided on his program, and he does charge over $2,500 a month in that niche, believe it or not, because you wouldn't think they could spend that much money on digital marketing, and has grown to actually multiple seven figures. In the first year, he grew to $92,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and now he's doing multiple seven figures in his agency. So just a good example of this playing out in the real world. Any questions about the model from anybody, Paulson, before we go to the next step?
Yeah, I think I'm seeing some questions come in here slowly, but um, why say no to people that are willing to give you money, right? It's kind of like a trap in the beginning, right? It's like you go to a BNI, you got 5 different types of businesses that are all interested in digital marketing. You mean, Josh, it's pretty easy to fall into that trap of saying yes to 4 or 5 different people that are all willing to write you a check, not knowing the headache that you're taking on with 5 different types of clients. Can you like help us align of why say no?
Yeah, so I do think there's a chicken and an egg situation there, right? Which is if you don't already have like a handful of clients within your niche, you do need to keep yourself open to validate like, hey, look, as an example, when we started Click Incorporated, which is now plumbing and HVAC SEO, we thought we were going to sell to restaurants. And we got the restaurant domain and we started prospecting into restaurants and we were knocking on restaurant doors and we didn't get one client. Literally in restaurants, but an opportunity opened up with a plumbing company in Fort Lauderdale, and we went out and we sold that plumbing company our program. And I remember talking to my business partner Dean and saying, look, that's going to be the only plumber we work with. Don't worry, we're going back on the restaurant track. And listen, sometimes early on, the niche chooses you. And so we did great work for that plumber, and he referred us to somebody else. And then we got another plumber. And it was like, where's the path of least resistance here? We're getting nowhere in the restaurant space, but here we are now with 4 or 5 clients in plumbing. And that was when we decided, okay, we've got a path. Let's focus on this niche. So,
Yeah.
I know the question was, when do we say no? I think when you've got 5 or more clients in your vertical and you feel like, okay, we got the system for this, we've got this off the ground, it's going to be much easier for you to go and get more clients in that space than just take everything that you've got in front of you. But I think if you're less than 5 clients and you need to pay the bills and you've got all of the suite of things you can do inside high level, take some of those opportunities. Just start with your marketing approach, going after a very specific intentional market.
Absolutely. And I know yesterday we wanted to talk today about niche selection. Is that
Yep.
is that something you guys are struggling with? Give us some comments in the streaming here. Do you want us to talk about niche selection?
Yeah, just
Type
type
in
niche if
niche.
type
Yeah.
niche if you need help with that picking process.
Yeah, and I often talk about this in our mastermind, Josh, is your launch strategy is different than your scale strategy, and it goes to what you just said. Your marketing angle, it's better to just focus on one and go all in, even if you're testing out a few different things to kind of get your feet wet, kind of get the ball rolling, and understand if you can generate results, or maybe you have a conditional contract that say, so let's work together for 90 days and see what kind of results we can generate in exchange for a case study. Things like that happens in the beginning. What are your thoughts on niche selection in general? Like I'm a big fan of not niching down in the very beginning, but once you get to a certain level, you're better off just niching down. And my dental agency was exactly that. After 5, 6 clients, I said, you know what? I'm going to be the Invisalign guy, and that's literally what I did. Facebook ads all day long for Invisalign. Any other offers, I just didn't take on, and that was the way we scaled.
Yeah, let's. I see a lot of people saying niche, niche, niche. I need some help with niche. Yes, let's get into it. So we'll do some niche selection brainstorm process here. Um, I think, Paulson, my opinion is you want to have a hypothetical niche, even at the beginning, right? You may not know yet what the niche is going to be, but just trying to market to everybody, you're going to
Yeah.
be attractive to nobody. So at least if you say, well, I mean, there's 5 niches I've considered. My hypothetical niche is restaurants. Let me go meet with some restaurant owners. Let me have some of those conversations. Then at least you're directionally going down a path. Now, you should still be doing networking. You should still be working your personal sphere of influence. You should still be looking for those low-hanging opportunities that might create an easier path with less resistance. But choose the hypothetical niche, have an open mindset to what opportunities present themselves. And then once you've got at least 5 and you've got some confidence in that space, then it's time to burn the boats and go all the way down that track. That's how I like to approach it.
I love that. And for those of you, for someone that doesn't even have a client yet, um, could they start off in a category for like example, healthcare, and they do
Mm.
med spa, dentist, therapist, is that an approach? Or they do home services and they do kitchen remodeling, painters, garage guys. Like, is that even a approach?
Yeah, I think for your first handful of clients, it's easiest to choose an industry like you just said there, and like work your sphere of influence. So anybody you've worked with in the past, any family, friends that you know that run within that business, get on conversations. Hey, I'm running an agency, or I'm running this platform that I'd love to introduce you to, show you what I'm thinking, get some feedback, see if you think it's a good idea. Those are usually going to be the seedlings of conversations that lead to introductions, that lead to your first couple of clients. And so you're not coming in, pretending like you've got it all figured out, like coming in and saying, hey, I'm working on this. I'd like your help, right? And when you come in it with that angle, they're more likely to say, yeah, let me help you. Let me give you some introductions. Let me point you in the right direction. Maybe even let me be your first case study client within this space.
I love that. Let's keep going.
Okay, great. Let me get to the share button here and we will get in because the group has requested. I wasn't initially planning to spend time on this, but since you guys need it and you guys have been sharing your feedback with us, we're going to gear this directly to what you guys are asking for here today. And so we're going to do a little bit of a niche selection brainstorm, and we'll go as deep or as shallow as you guys want on this. But I think I talked about the benefits of niche, so I don't need to beat the dead horse. People want to deal with the expert in their type of business. It's going to be easier to sell. It's going to be easier to fulfill. And so how do you choose the niche? I think there's a couple of things you want to consider. Number one is do they clump together or self-identify? So in my case, and I know like initially we talked about like choosing home services as an example. In my case, if I were to go to the market and say I help home service companies generate leads and sales by getting their digital marketing right, they don't really self-identify as home services. But if I say I'm looking to help plumbing companies generate more leads and sales via the internet and online marketing, or convert more of their leads into book jobs, they would self-identify, okay, this person's talking to me. So you want to be relatively clear on the specific market. As another example, if you think legal, that's a niche, but it's much better if you really want to go deep to go in to bankruptcy attorneys or to personal injury, right? The more specific your niche is, the better. Number two is, do they have a propensity to invest in marketing? And I learned this the hard way. There are certain types of businesses in a niche that are willing to spend money. They've historically invested in Yellow Pages or pay-per-click advertising, and they've got money set aside. They're used to spending money. There are other industries that just don't spend money on marketing. That's just not part of the way their businesses tend to operate. And it's much easier to take somebody's existing budget and apply it to what you can do more effectively than to convince somebody they should be spending money on something that they're not. Are there enough of them? This is important. Like I think and I've seen people build seven-figure agencies in very micro niches, but if there's only like 10 of those types of businesses, you've gone too small, right? Make sure there's enough that you could build a true business around it. The other thing is there an industry association? And I think most industries that you might consider, there is an industry association, right? And that's important because you're going to want to be part of that industry association. You're going to want to be at their events. You're going to want to be able to identify them and market to them. And so if there's an industry association, that's a beautiful thing, because usually you can get that list. You can draft on the affinity of that. Do they have periodic events within that industry? And I think the last thing that I would really want to consider is, do you have a background or any type of affinity within the niche? So choosing a niche out of the ether is hard. But if you've got some experience in the industry, either you worked in that industry or you had a business in that industry or your family did something in that industry, that's going to be easier for you to enter than to just randomly choose a vertical. And so a good example of this one, like, do you have some background there, is Brian Stearman from Lawn Care Marketing Mechanics. He was trying to choose his niche, right? And I can't remember. I think he was trying to work with restaurants as well. And we were going through this exact process, trying to help him figure out what niche he should focus on. And he said, well, you know what? I didn't think about it, but before I did this, I had a lawn care business that I sold. And I was like, well, why in the world wouldn't you be selling to, lawn care industry? And he's like, I don't know. I hadn't considered it. And so I was like, well, if you've got that affinity, you've got that background, you can talk the talk, you've got the industry lingo, let's focus on that space. And that's what he did. Built to seven figures, and now it's a multiple seven-figure agency serving the lawn care industry with digital marketing. So some things to consider as you choose the niche. Here's some of the top niches that we see that kind of we've got success with agencies in just about all of these spaces: home services, healthcare, legal, automotive, and business to business. You could start broad like that, especially if you're going to Chamber of Commerce, if you're sitting in B&I meetings. Hey, I'm looking to get introductions to home service companies. But just know your niche wouldn't be home services. It would need to be eventually kitchen remodeling, AC, plumbing, landscaping, roofing, electricians, pest control, locksmiths, etc. And I'm just going to kind of have this list up here because hopefully it helps you resonate with something like, okay, that's an opportunity that I have a little bit of background with, and I can get a foot in the door. I'm going to pause here, Paulson, to let you kind of chime in if you've got any thoughts on,
Yeah.
These verticals or others.
Yeah, and another thing you want to be mindful of in some of these industries is there are seasonal industries too. For example, accounting and taxes, or funeral homes often could be seasonal because they are based off of aftercare insurance and things like that. There's also like furniture stores and things like that. There's some seasonality, education, like if you work with daycares or after school programs, they're often based on the school year, right? So
Mhm.
there's seasonalities that you want to pay attention to as you choose an industry. But what I would love to do here, Josh, is get a temperature check of people where people are.
Yeah.
What are your top choice of an industry or a specific industry, a specific lane that you're thinking about, or maybe your second option? Give me two comments in the chat. Tell us your top choice and your second choice. Hey, you know what? I really like plumbing, but I'm also considering roofing. Really like dentistry, but I'm also thinking about day spas. Like, give us where you are in your decision a little bit, and that also you'll also be able to connect with people that are in this event together with you, like-minded
Mm.
individuals that you can connect with, and you can collaborate and share ideas. I'm telling you, back when I started my dental agency, I reached out to all the agencies, marketing agencies that were in dental, and I asked them, hey, can I shadow you? Can I work for you for free? Can I outsource projects to you so I can learn? Like that's literally how I collaborated and entered the dental market and focused on Invisalign. So in the comments, tell us what are your top two choices of industry are. I don't know if you see comments just yet. Let me go ahead and refresh my screen.
I do. I'm seeing
Um,
them. I'm seeing them come in.
and I love what you said, Josh. Sometimes the industry chooses you. I didn't realize you guys kind of fell into plumbing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's interesting. I think it happens more times than not, right? So don't be disheartened if you chose a niche and you went down that track and you like just haven't broken through. I can think of dozens of people that made a pivot and it was like, bam, now they're off to the races. So, it's never going to be a straight line, but you want to make an intelligent decision. You want to do your due diligence. You want to give it a college effort, and then once you've got the momentum, it's going to be off to the races.
Love it. I see tons of comments coming in.
I believe I added this list to the workbook. If I didn't, you can take a screenshot. It's up on the screen right now, and/or reach out to me directly, and I'll be sure to get you this list. Let's see. Love this pick. Landscaping. That's a great name. I know a number of agencies in that space. Automotive and home services. Mario, automotive, for sure. I know at least two agencies running seven figures, multiple seven figures in that space. Home service is a little too broad, right? And I would say in automotive as well, try and drill down to body shops or custom coating. The more niche within the niche you can get, the more attractive your messaging is going to be. The more you can dial in the program to those specific industries. Um, Amy, what about alternative medicine and coaches? I would say alternative medicine, yes, very, very good because you can speak to that industry directly. You can develop a program for it. Coaches, a little bit more challenging, but can be done. Let's see, do we want to just keep reading through the list here, or how do you want to handle this,
I
Paulson?
think I think we're good. Let's keep
Okay.
going to the next component because there's
Yeah.
we can spend hours on
Yeah, we could.
niches, but this connect with the folks that are saying industries that you're interested in, right? Like if you're finding other people, reach out, talk to them, get on a Zoom, get interactive, maybe meet in person. That's one of the things that I do in Houston is like I meet with digital marketers all the time for lunches even though I've kind of, left my own personal agency. I don't have that agency anymore because we went all in on high level, but I still stay connected to the people around it. So feel free to interact. We have meetups. There's GHL groups in every city almost at this point. So these are great ways to kind of get ideas and feedbacks and things like that. Keep going.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you guys a resource on page 13. Like Paulson and I have said, there's no perfect niche, right? So you want to choose a hypothetical niche. You want to use your best judgment. And this worksheet should help you shortlist, out of that list and kind of thinking about where you have some expertise. Shortlist three, run them through this gauntlet. What's the industry? Like, do I have affinity there? Do I know what I would do in order to get them a result? And do they have the propensity to spend? Right. And then what I would suggest you do is, as hard as it is, choose one and give that your focus for the next 90 days. Start doing one-to-ones with people in that industry. Start reaching out. Start driving around town and just dropping in, making introductions. You got to get 5 before you really got some momentum behind it, and where a lot of the rest of the strategies I'm going to be talking about really come into play. But it starts with casting your focus on a specific industry and starting to put some energy behind it. So let us know, at least hypothetically. I'd love it if you could just type in, hypothetically, this would be the niche I want to focus on, at least for the first quarter in 2025. Does that sound like a good play? Like, let's all pick one, Paulson?
Yeah, absolutely. Previously, we said put down your top two choices. Now, maybe lean towards making a decision,
Yeah.
and you don't have to make a final decision now, but at least have a focus. I think that'll help you quite a bit. And remember, you can definitely fail in a beta launch, right? It's totally normal to take on a client and not deliver results. And it's important that you don't just quit that industry just because you have one client that something didn't work out for. Maybe the marketing game plan didn't work. Maybe the budget was the issue. Maybe the follow-up system that they thought they had in place was the issue. So don't get discouraged just out of the gate. The point of getting 5, 6 case studies is to, build those results the right way. So it's important that you have that mindset.
Yeah, and kudos to those of you that type something in. So Sabrina, Tree Services, William, restaurants in Montreal, Junhem is accessory dwelling units, Gary, auto repair shops, plumbing, med spa, says Erica. Fantastic. Like, you have to make a decision. You guys have done that. Now we'll talk about kind of where we go from there. Let's shift gears now to program packaging, kind of how we develop the program that justifies a $2,500 or more monthly fee, how you put that into the mix, or whatever program you want to develop specific to your industry. I'll kind of show with you what programs we've found work best for the agencies that have gone to 7 figures and multiple 7 figures. The struggle that I see a lot of agencies have and that I dealt with is we're selling random piecemeal services. In a lot of cases, like, hey, I can do a website, so I'll do a website. Or, hey, I can do Facebook ads, I'll run Facebook ads. Or, oh, you need me to set up a funnel? I can do a funnel, right? We're just doing piecemeal things that are activity-based services. The other big challenge is sometimes our program doesn't provide tangible results, right? And of course, they're going to churn, right? If you want to charge $1,500 a month and just do activity services that don't actually create revenue and a return on investment, you don't really even have the right to expect them to stay with you. So we want to make sure that we actually develop a program that provides a tangible, measurable return on investment. And other times the numbers just don't add up, right? Like, there's no way they would pay enough to justify what we're trying to build. And so we haven't stacked the value enough that it really adds up. And a lot of times we're reinventing the wheel for every client, right? If we've got a sales process where we sit down with a prospect, we ask them what they need, they rattle off a list of menu items that they want. Well, that's not pre-engineered. Now we're saying, okay, well, we can do that, and we got to go figure it out. And we got to use our creative juices on every next client. And so this is the foundation, right? Once we've got our niche, and if we don't have the program that we're going to sell, that we have the best intentions of generating a tangible, measurable result, there's no way we can scale the agency from there. And so, just my opinion, I'm going to check in with Paulson, and we're going to get feedback. There's a million ways to skin the cat, but what I found works best is having a more comprehensive service offering to a very specific industry. So not just doing website, or not just doing Facebook ads, or not just doing funnels, but really coming in and saying, hey, you're here, client, you want to get here, what would I need to bring to the table that would get that outcome, right? It's usually a mix of things. And when you've got a comprehensive service offering, you're going to get a better tangible return on investment. You're going to have more hooks, which actually going to improve your retention, and you're going to be able to charge more, right? So that's really what we're after, making sure what we're doing is not just a bunch of stuff, but this is being added to the program because it's either going to make more traffic, more leads, more conversions, make more money for the client. And then we can charge a higher monthly fee. And of course, then we can systematize and roll it out with predictable results over time. And so that's what we want. We want a program that gets results, gets the clients to stay, gets them to pay more. And it's really the foundation of everything that we're going to do. So 5 quick principles on this from my perspective on really how we think this through, how we set this up. Number 1 is to sell the holes, not to drill, right? High level digital marketing. We've got a lot of technical things we can talk about. Websites, click-through rates, conversion rates, all of that stuff. But I want you to recognize when you go into Home Depot to buy a drill, do you care about how fast this thing spins or what the energy capacity is? Or are you just looking to get a hole in your wall? Just type hole if you just want the hole in the wall. And that's the reality. In context of your digital marketing agency, the client doesn't care about all the technical specs. What's the hole they want? Well, they want revenue. They want business growth. As an agency, that's your responsibility, is to help them spend money and get a great return on investment so that they can grow their business. So make sure you're not getting into the weeds and all the technical stuff. Number 2 is develop a complete program, right? And I like to consider it a growth program for your industry. So someone mentioned tree service companies. So you're coming into the tree service industry and deciding what would they need, right? If they want to grow their business, if they want to dominate online, if they want to convert their leads at the highest level possible, what will we need to put into that mix to generate a tangible, measurable return on investment? Number 3 is we're going to focus on impact, not activity. I like to think of it as if I was sitting down with my brother-in-law, family that I really care about, that I really, I have no personal gain that I'm looking at. I just want to help that person win. And I needed to develop a growth program for him. What would I include? Would I throw a lot of extra stuff that I know isn't going to work? Or would I just say, hey, we need to do this, 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 and this. And I believe if we just did those things, you're going to get growth and you're going to win. That's how you want to develop your program. So it's based on impact, not just activity. Number 4 is make sure that it's scalable and replicatable, right? There's a lot of things you could do that would generate great results, but can't be potentially replicated, and they would require you to do it. So be sure that you're not throwing in a lot of things you can't deliver on at scale. Make sure it's something that can be systematized. And number 5, remove yourself from the process, right? If the goal is to get to 7 figures and multiple 7 figures, it can't rely on you to click the buttons and to do all the work. You're going to have to do that at the beginning, but eventually you want to know that you've built it in a way that it wouldn't require you to personally do the stuff. Any thoughts on those 5 keys that you want to elaborate on, Paulson?
Let's keep going. I don't.
Okay.
We have a lot to cover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's the way I like to structure it, and we'll get right into it here. Should be niche focused, right? Should be built for a very specific industry. Should have a monthly recurring fee greater than $1,000 where they can enter a credit card or give you an ACH form. Client should be set to auto bill, and it should be more of a complete solution than a piecemeal strategy. And so would love for you guys on page 15, as you have time, just kind of do a little bit of a self-assessment on what you're selling. What is it that you're selling today? Do you have a program? Is it a bunch of ad hoc stuff, or is there a recurring process behind it? So this is just a self-assessment exercise. Since I know a lot of you guys are newer, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but just know that exercise is there. The program that we sell in the plumbing and HVAC industry, and that most of the members kind of have also sold into their niches, is starting with the website that's built to convert. We find most of the clients we work with have a website. Obviously, they've been through a dozen different providers, but the website isn't usually built to convert in a way that's going to generate high conversion rates. And so we're saying, hey, look, we need to make sure that website is built to convert. We need to make sure we're doing some optimization to get ranked organically, right, which is on the map in the non-paid listings for the most important keywords. We need to help them drive reviews. And this is one of the first areas where high level can have a huge impact. Now, you can do websites on high level and make it very easy to clone those websites out. But one of the key things that is going to help get your clients ranked is having reviews on Google and the other online sites. And so telling them, look, we're going to put a system in place so that after every service call, after every job, after every patient, an email is going to go out thanking them for their business and requesting a review. And we're going to monitor those reviews. We're going to help respond to those reviews. That's a huge piece of the puzzle that High Level is going to help you solve. Paid search, in my opinion, I really like our main program is going to do SEO, but it also does paid search. That way we can get the organic draft, but we can also be putting some gasoline behind it, whether in your industry that's Google ads or Facebook ads or something different. You want to have some type of paid component. And then a huge differentiator is marketing automation. So most of your clients have worked with a dozen agencies. They've tried it. They didn't get the results they wanted. They're frustrated. And one of the things you can come to the table and really talk about because you have High Level is, look, we're not just going to generate the leads because we know that we can generate leads, but if they don't convert into jobs, that's not going to do anything for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a marketing automation platform in place where when someone submits the form or when somebody starts a chat, they're going to get added to an automatic follow-up sequence that calls them immediately, that puts them into a drip sequence via email and SMS. And that's going to help you convert more of those opportunities into sales. And so we like to make this core to our main program. Database reactivation, this is a quick win you can do. Get their past customer base, send an email, send a text message, which you got the compliance figured out, and generate leads right out of the gates. This is part of our quick win strategy, completely driven by High Level. Retargeting, social media management, we can manage all of that within High Level. Email marketing, sending a newsletter every single month, do all of that through High Level. And then tracking an ROI, tracking their phone calls, putting it onto a pipeline, showing them the return on investment. I hope you can see here, if you're not using High Level, at least half of our program is powered by what we do within High Level. And when you combine the suite like this, you're really going to have a tangible, measurable result that you can bring to the table. This is what we do. This is what a lot of our members do. Anything you want to say on this, Paulson?
I think the key is to remember that there is what you should learn from this moment here with Josh is that there's an identity to your offer, and that's what the program is,
Mm,
right? And your program will evolve over time, right?
yeah.
Maybe 6 months later, you may add some AI employee stuff to it. Maybe
Yeah.
you add reviews to it. Maybe
Mm,
you add funnels to it. Maybe you add a email newsletter as a monthly local outreach. Like there are ways to be creative. So your program is something that has an identity. It's a thing. It's something that has a name. It's something that you stand for. It's something that has a staple that you can go to the market and say, here is, I don't know, the Thomas Growth Program. Like you can brand it a certain way and create it to be an experience. And that's the key. It's not about what the technicality of how you deliver the results are. Like
mm,
when you're talking to the customers, they don't care about leads. They care about how many people walked in through the front door from those leads.
yeah.
That's what actually moves the needle. So just, it's important that you don't get into the feature stacking and all the stuff, but just at the end of the day, deliver the results that you promise. And if you're starting out, here's a pro tip. Save the money that you're making from the clients in a bank account. Don't spend it. Be able to give that back to the client if you have to, based on how a beta will go, based on how you're building out case studies. In the beginning stages, I refunded clients that I didn't do well for just to get my feet wet. And it took a lot of stress away from me when I was like, you know what? I'm just going to put that $2,000 in the safe, and in case if something goes wrong, I'll refund it back to them. And that just took a lot of pressure off of me, right? And these are ways that you want to think about. Having an identity to your program is what matters.
100%. Yeah. Just that's what you want to do. And so just to, because a lot of times people are like, well, like, what are your programs priced at? How do you structure this? I like to say we got a main program, which is the higher price program. And then we've got our kind of drop sell, and then we've got another drop sell from there. And so our online marketing complete, usually going to be between $3,000 and $5,000 per month, plus their ad spend, right? So you never lump the ad spend into what you're doing. That should be charged to their credit card separately, and you're telling them what budget you recommend. And this is usually what we're selling the client. And I'll talk about the sales process. We're going to get into that in a minute, but this is what we lead with. And then we've got a couple of drops, right? So if they don't want to do all of that, they just want to do SEO and paid search with their website, maybe that's 2,000 to 2,500 at just SEO. And you always want to have as a final drop, well, look, you definitely need the marketing automation, right? You definitely need the chat widget on the website. You definitely need the things that we can bring together from a marketing automation perspective. And every prospect should be offered that in the sales process. And we'll find a lot of people that maybe aren't going to do, $5,000 a month will come on at 250 for your white label version of high level. So hopefully that's helpful. Give me a yes if that's helpful. Kind of walking you through our program there. What I would encourage you guys to do, and just for the sake of time, is to map out your core program, right? Program 1, program 2, program 3, the gold standard over here on the left. This is what's going to be included. And when I say one program, that's the main program that you're offering to everybody. And then you've got a couple of lower level opportunities, a couple of lower level options that they can tap into. I did put this into your workbook. If you've got the newer version, I did make some updates from yesterday. So if you downloaded it yesterday, I apologize, but the one that's on there today has this in your workbook that you can go through this exercise with. And then really you want to get granular, right? I mean, yes, it's good to map out a million things you can do, but you need to figure out how much is it going to cost to do each of these different things for our clients. We talked about this yesterday. Good thing you got a $3,000 program, but if you're doing $3,000 worth of stuff, you're not making any more money than if you were selling high level straight up for for like $250 a month. So figure out how's that stuff going to get done? How much does all of that stuff cost? Are you going to do it in-house, like with your own self or with your own team? Or are you going to subcontract to a white label provider or to somebody freelance that can help you out with that? I think this is outside of the scope of what we're doing here, but I did want to plant this seed that yes, we build a program, then we mark down all of the deliverables, and then we figure out the cost components. And then from there, you really want to make sure that you got at least a 3-time markup on the cost. So if you find out that your program is going to cost you $300 to deliver, you need to multiply that by at least 3 times so that you've got a profit margin after delivery costs and everything else. Anything you want to add on this, Paulson?
No, I think a lot of times less is more, right?
Yeah.
Adding more things to the stack of delivery is not going to move the needle often. You just need to look at the offer and see, am I getting as close as I can to the revenue line of the business? This is why I'm not a big fan of branding projects, right? Those are complementary projects to actual revenue drivers, right? Design stuff and all that. It's great, but I don't touch it much in my old agency because I can't attribute a certain result. I want to be able to call Josh and say, "Hey Josh, I know you're working with us for the Invisalign program." That's kind of how I built my agency. And I want to be able to say, "Hey, this month we delivered 12 new Invisaligns that you should have had a margin of at least 50, 60%. So you're charging 5K, you should have taken home at least 3,500 times 12. That's how much money I brought back to you when I'm charging you $3,000 a month." I want to be able to talk in that language so I can say, here's my attribution. The biggest problem with agencies when it comes to account management is they have no game plan on attribution and they have no game plan on the follow-up side. They don't know how to help complement the client follow up with the sales, right? So those are the two weaknesses of an agency is how you deliver attribution and tell them and explain them, here's the activities that I did because of that, here's the revenue that you made. If you can't do that, your program don't have a lot of legs. They're just trusting you to trust you because you're a nice person, you're a professional, and you can shake hands, but that's not going to create long-term clients.
Mhm. 100%, right? And so that's why high level is integral. It's going to be integral to how you market yourself, but it's going to be integral to what you deliver and how you retain and how you stand out in the marketplace, right? And so, high level gives you that ability to track the results, to put the follow-up in place, to bridge the gap between we're going to generate leads and we're going to help you convert those leads. And we're going to help show you spent $1,500 or $2,000 or $3,000 with me, but this is how much revenue you generated, which instills confidence and which is where the stickiness comes from. You can't just generate return. You have to generate return and prove that you generate return. So they have the confidence that what you're doing is actually working. Amazing. And so from there, once you've got this all dialed in, you want to put it into a program overview. And so I just dropped the link of our program overview as a point of reference for you guys. So this is just it's just a document that outlines, hey, here's what's in the program, here's what you can expect, here's how much it costs, right? And you get all of the detail. Hopefully this is super helpful. You can use this as a great point of reference. And then what's beautiful is you can drop this into high-level e-sign and literally send it off. They sign off on it. They give you their credit card authorization, and you're off to the races. This is where it starts, right? Like we've got the niche, and now we've got the program. We want to put it into a document so we can have a sales conversation and ask for the business.
Yeah,
So
I like having like a skinny version of that too, just so you have a bunch, let's say you have a bunch of prospects that are not hot or super warm and they just want to get a ballpark idea. You don't have to send them the meaty one with the contracts and numbers and pricing. You can simply have like a one pager that basically says, here's what's included, or here's a two pager, the second page being a bunch of testimonials or case studies. So there are different versions of it that you can create for yourself as well.
absolutely, absolutely. So I think we uncovered the program packaging. Hopefully it was detailed enough that it's useful. Any burning questions on this?
Let's see. One question I have for you, Josh, is um, as a solopreneur, as you're offering six, seven different things, are you recommending that I get familiar with every single one of these facets, or should I just focus on one that I'm working on and outsource the rest? Like how do we deliver this, especially if you're a brand new person starting out less than 6 months in digital marketing?
Yeah, I would say, you don't want to long-term probably outsource your core competency, right? So if you're a digital marketing agency, your core competency is doing digital marketing, but you can't be a master of everything right out of the gates, right? So I had usually you're going to have some skills that you come to the table with. So I had the skill of knowing how to build a website, knowing how to do SEO, and develop the skill of learning how to do Google Ads. But if you didn't have that expertise, one of the best things you can do is align with either a great white label provider or a great freelancer and have things that you control that you know exactly how to do, but get some good providers that can do the fulfillment on your behalf until you get to a level of critical mass and can start to develop your own internal capacity. That's
Yeah.
how I would approach it.
Yeah, and for those of you that are new, there's also certified admin that are part of high level community. Like high
Yeah.
level itself could be the big mountain that you feel
Yes.
like you have to climb, you know? So if that's you, there's a directory. You can go to certified admins. They have all kinds of ranges in pricing, and you can partner up with someone that'll help you with all of your high level stuff, automations. It's not too hard. Josh, real quick, do you mind putting that link back up? I believe for the program overview, we had a few requests come in.
Yes. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, you're good. Yeah. So take this as inspiration, right? And you should be able to create a skinny version and a heavy version depending on two different scenarios. Someone who's not, kind of a cold lead that you can give them the skinny version, and someone who's like a super warm, ready to sign contract. You want to give numbers and prices and all of that. Like I would definitely create two different versions of this for sure. So yeah, let's keep going.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's the program overview stuff. A great example of this is Barry Nix. His big struggle was he didn't know how to package his program, and he was struggling on what niche to focus on, which is the two things we just really got into here, like narrowing in on a niche and then developing the program for that industry. What he did was he decided he was going to focus on garage door companies, and so that was the niche he decided to focus on. Put together his program, very similar to what we've talked about here. Has since grown from like 5,000 a month to over $97,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And so, just another good example. If you want to look up Barry Nix garage door at garage and door domination, he's a good example of that. So the next question we have to solve for is how do we sell these services? Now we've got the program, we've got the niche. What's the sales process look like? What do those conversations look like? Do we want to get right into that, Paulson? Or is there anything you want to cover before we dive in?
Yeah. Do you guys have any questions on the programs before we
Yeah.
go any further? Let me just give it, let's give it 1 or 2 minutes here. Any burning questions before we shift into sales process? We talked about niche selection, we talked about program overview and the structure behind it, pros and cons of doing some of that competencies yourself versus outsourcing, and just kind of having different price points, right? As you go into the market. We talked about a ton of different things. But before we go into sales, I just want to make sure there's no burning question. Um, and also just a quick temperature check. Are you intimidated by sales? Like, is sales something that you're afraid of? If you're not a fan of sales, put one in the chat. If you're maybe like me a little bit, you don't mind sales and that was kind of your strong suit, put a two in the chat to kind of give us a temperature check of where you are with your comfortability in sales in general.
There's a couple comments here that I'll just chime in on. Mario's asking, call it a growth system, not a marketing system. Either way, I think either of those names, you want to give it a proprietary angle, right? So if it's the plumbing marketing system, that's great, right? The plumbing marketing growth system, the accelerated growth model for plumbing companies, like those, all of those, you know, iterations would be fine.
Yeah.
Greg's asking, do you start with a low price and then increase? There's a million ways to skin the cat, right? And depending upon where you're at in your agency, how much clients you have, what your expertise is, I think if the question is, do you do an escalation ladder or do you sell straight into retainer? I've looked at it both ways. In my agency, I prefer go straight to retainer. I know there's a lot of people that sell a low ticket thing and then upsell. My preference
Yeah.
is sell the thing, right?
Yeah, there's really three ways to go about it. You have a low ticket that you enter with, and then you have a mid ticket 2,500 to 3,500. And in case if something goes wrong, you park them back into the low ticket. That's kind of the SaaS hybrid model that you see often. The traditional model is go straight into the retainer, and in case if something goes south, you park them into the SaaS. Or you can just do SaaS only, where you're just staying low ticket, but it's high volume kind of a thing. But there are, like Josh said, there's multiple ways to skin the cat. But the key is to have a decision made about your offer and the program. It's terrible to sell multiple things to multiple customers, right? You do low ticket here, mid ticket there, high ticket there, low ticket here. If you do that, you're not going to have predictability financially, but most importantly, your fulfillment is going to be a headache. You're going to value certain customers who pay you more because your anxiety towards making sure you deliver results is going to be a lot higher for somebody that's paying you 25 grand a month versus 250 a month just for reviews, right? You don't want that kind of a interaction with your book of business. But let's keep going
Great questions,
on the
guys.
sales
Appreciate
process.
the engagement.
Yeah.
I will be reading through the questions after the fact as well. So let's get into sales process. And I saw a couple of twos. Like I feel pretty confident in my sales process. I saw a bunch of ones. Like I don't really know how to sell this. I'm not confident in how to sell it. I'm going to show you guys how we sell digital marketing agency services at that $1,500 to $5,000 a month price point. This would be different, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paulson, if you're selling the SaaS directly at 250, right? And
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it may not
Yeah.
warrant this level of attention to detail and
Yeah.
this process, right? So just understand you're going to approach it differently based on the level of program you're selling.
Yeah, absolutely. For SaaS, we talk about it at the mastermind. We have other workshops that focused on SaaS. Here, what we're focused on is the normal agency model.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Good clarification there. I appreciate you clarifying that. So here's how we present the program. Couple of disclaimers, a couple of things you want to think about on the front end. Price should only be discussed after value has been shown. So sometimes we get the question of, if somebody emails me, how much is it? Or do I put the pricing on the website? If you tell someone it's $2,500 per month and they don't understand what you're going to do and they don't understand the value, they have no context in what you can bring to the table, any amount is too much in the absence of value. And so you want to get them onto a live meeting and say, hey, it really depends. I'd love to get on your calendar, get a sense of what you're doing today, get a sense of what your goals are. and see what you need, because it's going to depend upon what you're looking to do and what you need. And so you want to move them to a web-based meeting where you can have a conversation, where you can meet them where they're at, and you can demonstrate the value. So Zoom, Join, GoToMeeting, and then you want to customize your program overview, explaining what you can do for them, right? So you're not doing a custom proposal for everybody. You're taking your program, you're cloning it, you're changing the logo. That way, you're not reinventing the wheel. You've pre-engineered it. It feels to them at some level like, this was custom built for me, but it's custom built for the industry, and it just happens to match what they need at this particular juncture in their business. And you want to follow up with your program overview agreement, hot lead follow-up, which we'll get into in just a sec. And so this is the seven-figure agency sales process that we train on. Number one, a prospect has to raise their hand, right? They have to express some level of interest in what we do. Number two, we would have a quick discovery call, right? And this could be 5 minutes, or it could be 20 minutes, or it could be via a survey on the front end. But we're just trying to get a sense before we do all of our research and before we present the program. Where are you at right now? What are your goals? How much are you spending on marketing? Is there really a problem that we can solve, right? If there's no problem, there's no point going through a detailed sales process. Then from there, if it's a good fit and you feel like, hey, look, this is the right kind of company I want to work with, then you do the consultative strategy session. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what happens in that. But that's where you're able to go deep on their situation. You're able to show them where there's gaps in their online marketing, and you're able to present your program. Typically, these services aren't sold directly on the first call, right? I mean, usually there's going to be a little bit of follow-up, and that's a couple of steps in the sales process. And so I like having a pre-engineered hot lead follow-up process where after that conversation, we drop a shock and awe box, and we nurture them from, hey, I'm really interested, to I'm signing up. And what you'll see is in this sales process, high level pretty much drives this entire process for us. Our entire opt-in funnel, our entire opt-in process is landing pages on high level, content that sits on high level that gets them to express interest. When they schedule in, that's getting added to the high level calendar, and that's kicking off a workflow that warms them up, that nurtures them before the appointment. Then once we've met and they say they're interested, it's all automated, the hot lead follow-up process. We move them the hot lead follow-up in the pipeline. That drops the shock and awe box and adds them to another sequence of emails. And then they're signing off on a high-level document signature that kicks off the onboarding. So that's just high level what the sales process looks like and kind of how high level plugs into it. Getting into the details, I'm not going to spend a lot of time today on how to get prospects to raise their hand. We're going to do that more tomorrow. But ideally, we're going to put out content that's of interest, that is value added to the industry. They're going to express interest, and they're going to be able to schedule in a time on our schedule, right? And they can pick a time and then see some examples, see some value in advance, and actually show up to the appointment pre-positioned to buy. Number two is we're going to have that discovery call process. And this could be as detailed or as loose as you want. I like to have some type of structure. I don't like to use a sales script for any of this stuff. It should be very conversational. It should be very natural, but you do want to follow a flow. But the main thing we're trying to do on the discovery call is just get an understanding of how they're marketing themselves today, what they've tried in the past, how much they're investing in marketing, what their goal is. And that's the biggest thing is, hey, what's the goal? Where are you looking to go? Why they feel like they need to make a change, why they feel like now is the time to make a change. And if all of those answers make sense and you feel like, hey, you know what, I see the gap, I see how we can help, then you would move them to the strategy session where you're going to sit down and take them through a consultative sales process. Now, in order to do the strategy session well, we're going to have to do some due diligence, right? You can't just show up and have a pitch deck and go through slides, right? It needs to be based on their actual current situation and what they're doing today. And so we do quite a bit of prep leading into our meetings. There's a lot of tools to do this, but theoretically, if we're talking about SEO, we're talking about Google Ads, we're going to probably spend a little bit of time creating a keyword list, seeing how they're ranking currently, doing some audits of their current paid search strategy, so that when we do get on the call, we're not just talking, we're like showing them, hey, here's the keywords you're not ranking for. Here's what's wrong with the website and why it's not converting. hey, I tried to call your number and didn't get a live answer, and I don't see any live chat, and there's no way to book on your website today. And that way you can stack the problem. Again, if they don't have a perceived goal they're trying to get to and a very specific problem that they need to solve, there's no way they're going to say yes to your $2,000, $3,000, $5,000 a month program. So you have to meet them and get them to understand that there is an issue and that you're the solution to get them to that goal that they're trying to get to. And so that's where the meeting prep comes into play. And then on the strategy session itself, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to lead, we're going to establish the gap, and then we're going to present. And we lead by spend a couple minutes talking about them, talking about what's going on in their life. Not a lot, but just build a little bit of rapport. I'm going to set the agenda. I've got a very specific process that I follow when I go through these meetings. I'm going to ask some questions about you. I'm going to show you how we can help. And then if it makes sense, I'm going to ask if we can make a decision, right? And they're going to say yes because they like you to lead the conversation. So you're going to ask for that decision. From there, you're going to establish the gap. You covered this a little bit on a discovery call, but you want to go back into it on your strategy session. You're going to spend a little bit of time. Hey, so tell me about the current situation. Tell me about your goals. Tell me about who you've worked with in the past. Tell me about why this is important for you. And it's really important in a consultative sales process. It's not just you talking, right? This portion right here should be 80% them talking and you asking questions and you filling in the gap. And so it's really important that you've got some questions in there. Hey, look, so the goal is to get to whatever, like you told me you're at $1 million, you want to get to 3 million. Why is that important for you? If they don't speak why that's important, they're not going to want to move forward. They're not going to do anything. Hey, so why not just stay where you're at right now? You've got this other company that's doing it. Why change? Let them speak that out because selling isn't telling. It's subconsciously getting them to decide in their own mind, hey, there is a problem. Hey, this is a now thing. Hey, I need to make a decision. And then from there, you're gonna shift to review the findings. And so, hey, look, you told me you're here. Told me that this is what you're looking to try. You told me this is what you're doing right now and where you're looking to go. Our team did a bunch of due diligence to prepare for this meeting, pull up your rankings and pull up your website. Would you like me to get into that with you? Get their permission to shift into showing the problem. Right, and at that point, you're going to share your screen and all of those tabs that you pulled up in prep for the meeting, you're going to show them. Hey, look, I ran this keyword list and here's where you're not coming up. I'm not going to get into those details because everyone's going to be selling a little bit different program, but you're going to review the findings and you're going to get them to buy in and say, oh, wow, I didn't realize that. Oh, I see what's going on with the website. Oh, I see why, we're not converting those leads that we're getting. And then you can say, hey, look, based on what I've showed you right now, I believe there's specific opportunities here. There's specific issues that we can solve. Would you like me to show you what we do and how it works? Right? And then they're going to say yes. We're getting yeses throughout each of these steps. And that's when you would get into a program overview. Hey, so look, the website isn't built to convert. Here's what we're going to do on the website. Hey, I noticed you're not coming up for these keywords. This is why. This is what we're going to do with the content and the on page and the off page, right? This is what we're going to do with reviews. Hey, I noticed, and you want to do a little bit of secret shopping on the front end. I noticed when I called, there wasn't a live answer. I noticed there wasn't an opportunity to chat. I think that's costing you in terms of conversion. And so this is what we're going to put in place to help convert those opportunities from lead into sale. And then if you've got examples, this is a great place to say, hey, look, let me show you a couple of examples of some clients we've done this for and pull it up and show them the difference, show them the contrast. And then you would shift to a 3-loop question, which is comfortable with everything we covered so far. Usually they're going to say, yes, this sounds great. You have any questions? This is where you're going to pull out any objections they might still have or any questions that are going to prevent them from being able to say yes. And I like to just say from there, pull instead of push. Where do you think we should go from here? And if you've done a good job establishing the gap and presenting your program, they're either going to say, let's get started, or what's the next step, or how much does this cost? And then you can get into the price and you can ask for the business. Again, I'm trying to do a Cliff Notes version here, Paulson. Hopefully I'm doing this justice, but this is the sales process and there's a flow to it. And so again, you don't want to script it, but you want to have a strategy session flow. So I'm giving you this visual so you can kind of guide yourself through this process, the questions that you ask. And then of course, then we ask for the business. You're never going to get the business that you don't ask for. Love to open up for any questions on this, Paulson, but hopefully I was able to give you guys enough context on what this sales process and how you can drive it to convert $2,000 to $5,000 a month clients.
I love that. So hopefully you guys and gals are getting some insights here on the sales process. So for me, the big important thing I've always kind of reminded myself with it when it comes to sales is the person that's giving control is actually in control,
Mm,
right? Don't assume control. And that's what sales is all about, right? 98% of the time, they should be talking. 2% of the time, you should be talking. 98% of the time, you should be listening. 2% of the time, they should be listening, right? That's the dance that you essentially want to pay attention to. So then, if that's the case, how do you give a prospect control over the conversation? Is by asking questions, the right questions, not like yes or no questions where they're just shutting off and they're driving a truck and they're not really like committed to investing into marketing. As soon as they jump in on their cell phone, I'm out. Like in my head, I'm already turning off. I'm like, this guy's not serious about their business, right? You want to, and that's on you to set the agenda straight, prep them, and one thing I'll add here is there's something called like the popcorn. I don't know what the term my friend Joel Kaplan used to call it. He used to talk about sales being a popcorn effect, which is
mm,
when you take a bag of popcorn and you throw it into a microwave and you let's say you put it on there for a minute, nothing happens for the first 45 to 50 seconds. And then the last 10 seconds the entire bag of popcorn just pops off. And that's kind of how agency sales is, especially in the beginning. You keep doing sales, sales, sales. You're like, man, I had 10 strategy sessions and nothing worked, right? And the 12, 13, 14, 15, and 16 all just sign up. And you're like, I have no idea how it all popped off. But in reality, what's happening is you're learning the dance better. You're learning your tonality. You have a certain confidence in how you deliver services. You have an idea of how to set the agenda. Maybe you're comfortable with the Zoom setup. I mean, getting a client to show up on a Zoom properly, getting the camera on, that itself is an art and
mm.
science. So, like, you kind of figure out the process and mechanics a little bit and you start developing your tone. And that's perfectly normal to get rejected in the beginning and you start popping, sales like out of nowhere. One weekend, you just find yourself landing three clients and you're like, man, I have no idea how that happened. But this is because of the science of sales, right? More at bats is what close more deals, not any fancy technique. If you are familiar with Chet Holmes, the ultimate sales
Mm.
machine, it comes down to more at bats. That's what makes a great closer different than a good closer. They just have more at bats. Okay. Back to you, Josh.
Yeah, 100%. Ultimate Sales Machine, one of my favorite business development books of all time. Great book. Highly recommend everyone check it out. So that's the sales process, right? And ideally, you ask the question, you ask for the business, they give you the credit card, and you're off to the races. But I would tell you, even in our agency, now doing $7 million per year, it's only probably 20% of the clients that give us a credit card, and we're off to the launch call and everything else. So, what do we do with the rest in order to follow up and follow through? That's where we put a hot lead follow up process in place. And what's beautiful is we know that we need to follow up, we know we need to follow through, but rarely have time to do it. And with high level, we can put the automations in place. And so for us, it literally sits on a pipeline, scheduled strategy session, and then we move them to hot lead follow-up. They were really interested. Obviously, we're going to schedule that next call right there. Never leave the call without scheduling the next one. All right, hey, listen, understood. Let's schedule next week at 2 o'clock. Does that work? Let's put it on the calendar. But then what we like to do is put them into a hot lead follow-up sequence where we drop a shock and awe box on them. And so they're going to get something in the mail. It's got a copy of our book. It's got a bunch of testimonials. It's got a timeline on what they can expect and a series of emails that move them from, yep, I was interested, to there's a 2-week deadline sequence basically that we agreed to on the front end where it's like, hey, look, here's some examples. Here's some client references. Here's what the plan is, all the way through to, hey, look, we both decided we'd make a decision one way or the other. Let's jump on a call and move forward, and or take away. And one of the most powerful things you can do in your sales process is take it off the table. which is, hey, look, we talked. It seemed like it was a good fit. Haven't heard from you, so I can only assume you've decided to go another direction. Thanks so much for the opportunity. Wish you all the best. Right? Literally, let that be the message that cancels out the opportunity after 2 days. But what usually happens if they were actually interested is that's when they reemerge. They're like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. No, I'm interested. Let's get back on the call. Let's get this thing started. And it's great that you can engineer that whole process inside high level with the countdown sequence, and you don't even have to think about it. Literally, message goes to the mail house, they send it to the mail, and all of these communications automatically happen. There's a little bit more advanced, the hot lead follow-up, but if you're doing any volume of sales calls, that's going to be something you want to add to the equation. And of course, we want to sign the deal, right? Send the agreement, make it as simple, take friction off the table, let them sign it in high-level signature, and now you've got your client who's ready to rock and roll. So that's the seven-figure agency sales process. Any questions about this?
Yeah, I think, as people are putting in questions and commenting, we'll go through it. Um, Josh, for the person that's starting off, I think it's important that we, let them know to start just getting better 1% a day. You're not going to implement these systems that Josh developed over
Yeah,
15 years
right.
plus. And I had,
100%.
my agency for 5, 6 years. It took us years to develop some of these things. Remember, at a certain point, someone else has to manage all this. Like you have a team member, right? You have an account manager, you have operations folks, you have folks that are, focused on prospecting, you have closers. Someone else is implementing all these things. So when that happens, the whole game changes. Like in the beginning, you could control a lot of things and there's certain quality and all these things that you can deliver. But when you're trying to train your team to implement all this, it's a whole different ball game. So just be aware, these are things that we're teaching that were developed over many years. So don't feel intimidated that you have to implement all the stuff before you can go out, even get started.
So good. Let's see. Are we going to share the slides? Answer is yes. This is awesome. Great presentation. So good. So glad you're getting value. You include a pitch deck or slides to close the prospect. Typically, we're running through tabs, and then we'll pull up the program overview. Hey, based on what you said, this is what you need. A lot of different ways you can handle that. Should automations be extremely dialed in or simplicity desired? You can make it pretty simple. Hey, just wanted to check in. Hey, I ran this ranking report. Let's jump on a call to discuss it. You can get more sophisticated over time. Awesome, great questions. Really appreciate the engagement here, guys.
Yeah.
Let me pull up my screen again.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
funny how you take away from them. It's funny how you took away like in the hot lead follow-up, you're like, well, thanks for your time. Maybe we're not a good fit. We wish you best of luck. That's pretty gutsy. Like, that I'm sure that throws them off.
well, I mean, usually, so if they weren't interested, they're like, yep. And, like one of the biggest challenges I see with agencies is they get a couple appointments, the client's passively interested, their pipeline starts to build up. They think, man, I got these 10 opportunities in play. They're all going to convert. And those same 10 opportunities prevent them from going out and filling their calendar with new opportunities. Where best thing you can do from your own mental space is just wipe the slate clean. I got nothing, right? I got to go create some new opportunities. But from the prospects' perspective, if they were at all interested, they're like, no, I want to do it. And if they weren't, who cares, right? They're moving on with their lives. And it's very respectful. It's like, hey, we both agreed. We make a decision sometime in the next 2 weeks. And you haven't got back to me, so I can assume that you're not interested, right? And
Yeah.
that works. It
Yeah.
works really well, both for you as
Yeah.
the agency owner and for them as the prospect,
Yeah, and you also don't come off like too desperate for the sale, right?
right?
That's a big weakness for a lot of agencies. Like, I gotta pay the bills. I'll do anything, any project, and that's kind of that, early runaround to just get the ball rolling. But this is fantastic. Let's keep going. Who are these
Go ahead.
guys? Jim and Brian?
Yeah, so great example of this is Jim and Brian from Roofer Marketers. And kind of looking at what we've done over the last 2 days. We talked about the model, we set the goals and the targets, we figured out the program packaging and the niche and the sales process. Jim and Brian hit the ground running with this. They started back in 2018, about $13,000 in their agency, just trying to get it off the ground. Decided they would focus on the roofing space, so roofing contractors, implemented the entire process. And over the last couple of years, grew to $500,000 in monthly recurring revenue, became the dominant player in that roofing niche. and recently sold to the big CRM within the industry. So, like you guys have a multiple seven figure exit process here that you can match against. And these guys were, down at that
Yeah.
level. And so this stuff absolutely works. So here's what we covered today. We went through the seven figure agency model, program packaging. We did the niche selection brainstorm and the sales process on how to close these types of deals and opportunities. The next big question is, all right, I know how to sell it. I know kind of what I'm packaging. How do I get the appointments, right? And on day one, we spent a lot of time setting the goals and the targets, and we figured out what the KPI was, which is how many strategy sessions do you need? And some of you guys, it was 10 or 15. Some of you was a little bit more. What we're going to do tomorrow is build that marketing strategy so that we can get those appointments, we can warm up those prospects, and get really clear on what the daily, monthly, and quarterly activities need to be to fill the calendar, to get those at bats, right? And dial in that sales process, improve that sales ratio, and ultimately get the new clients that we need every month, every quarter, and hit the sales targets for the year. It,
Absolutely. So Josh, if you have maybe 10, 15 minutes, we can go through Q&A on a bunch
absolutely.
of different stuff that we talked about today. I recommend y'all watching this over, maybe a few times to kind of, there's some details that myself and Josh might have just thrown out that we're not even conscious of it because we're just in the thickness of building businesses. But maybe
Mm,
for you, that's a big aha moment, right? So even if you don't have any questions, put down your biggest aha moment so far
yeah.
from day one and two. And I'm gonna get my phone out here. So it's 12:36. We'll cut it off at 12:45. So what are some burning questions that you may have that are relevant to today's content around the program overview, offers, or niche selection? If you have questions outside of that, we'll come back to it and try to get to it as quick as we can. But let me go ahead and go to the streaming here and pick out a couple of good questions that I think are really reasonable here.
Yeah, while he's finding those questions, if you could, if you got value from that sales process overview, put a dollar sign in the comments. If there was at least one takeaway, maybe it was that hot lead follow-up process, or maybe it was just the way to open up the three question loop, drop a dollar sign into the comments.
Got it. Okay, cool. So first question. Elika Selford, I believe, is asking, how do you get them to tell their objections on the call instead of ghosting and deciding to not go forward without telling you why? Sometimes people don't tell me even if I ask them a lot of questions, or maybe I don't ask enough. So this is a sales psychology thing, right? How do you get over objections or, get them to share the real reason of why they're saying yes or no.
Yeah, I love it. I think it comes down to the process, right? If you built good rapport at the beginning and you made it about them and not about you, they're more likely to open up. So make sure you spent that time on the front end. And when it comes to the very end, right, and you're saying, hey, look, does everything make sense? Or you're happy with what we covered so far? Do you have any other questions? And then you're asking for the business, and they say, well, I got to think about it, or I'll get back to you, and you try and schedule that next call. It's good to ask the question, like on a scale from 1 to 10, 1 being it's not going to happen, 10 being I'm ready to go. Where do you sit on that spectrum? Right? That forces them to say, well, honestly, it's probably like a 5, right? And then you can ask, okay, completely understand. I appreciate you sharing that feedback with me. Is there anything I could do to help you move that from a 5 to a 10? Right? But the answer might just be, I'm not that interested. I don't see the value. I don't feel like I have a big problem. And that might just be shut the opportunity down and move on with your life. But it might be there was some specific question or some specific concern that they'll then share with you that you can either go back and address or you can get into more detail with. So, there's no silver bullet question that gets all of the objections out, but, asking the questions throughout, getting their buy-in, and then closing with that on a scale from 1 to 10 should help to air out as much of that as you can.
Yeah, the benefit, a lot of advanced agencies, they have advantage, which is they have two offers, a really big offer and a small offer, right? You may have a $3,000 package that just have a lot of objections around it, and then you just may have like a $300 package. So sometimes if they're not ready for the big package, often you can park them into a starter, foot in the door thing. Hey, would you like it if we just turn on AI employee web chat on your website, and that'll just start driving leads and following up for yourself automatically? Or
Yeah.
would you like our system that just gets you started with reviews, and all it will do is start capturing reviews, so maybe 5 months down the line when you're ready for full on full blast marketing, we have reviews in our back pocket already. Like, so sometimes it's a creativity in how you do things, but it's important to have two different lanes of a program sometimes, right? Josh, can you talk about that? I know you
Yeah.
park a lot of people when you've kind of done the marketing and they're kind of outgrown that program or what, vice versa. But
Yeah.
can you share notes on that?
Yeah, what I would say is, usually what you don't want to do is have a menu, right? So if you got three programs, you're not saying, hey, which one of these three do you like best? That's not what we're doing. So just to be clear, like you're going to lead with the bigger program, right? It's like, hey, based on what you told me, this is what you need. Now, based on their feedback, they may be like, you know what, that's just too much money right now. Or like, that's a lot. I've already got some people I'm happy with. I don't want to do all of that. And based on your questions, you can identify, hey, you know what, maybe we should just do this, right? Whatever segment of your program it is. Maybe it's just, let's just do the SEO, right? You want to get ranked organically? We can do that. And that's how much this is. Does that sound like a better fit for right now? Yes. Or maybe it's like, you know what? I don't want to do any of this. And then you can shift gears and be like, well, hey, look, I know for sure you told me you're spending money on marketing. You've got people getting into their website. And it doesn't appear like you're converting at a very well level because you don't have marketing automation in place. If nothing else, I can't understand why we wouldn't move forward with putting some type of marketing automation to help you convert more of those opportunities. Do you agree? Get their feedback, and that's when you can drop sell. Like, and that's why you got to pulse check with them throughout the call to make sure that they're going to say yes to something. And I think, yeah, having that in your back pocket and being able to present that as the final option. But it's not, here's the 6 things you could buy. Which one do you want? It's, here's what I think you need. Get feedback. Okay, well, maybe we'll do this. No, get feedback. Well, at a minimum, we should definitely do this. And if you started at 5K and now you've got an option that's a must-have that's only $250 or $300 a month, that's your white label, high level, or high level automation, that should be a slam dunk because they're already mentally pre-thinking of a much bigger price that they weren't comfortable with.
Yeah, and that allows you to expand them later. You've already had a conversation with them. It's not a blindsided big offer. You want to be like a physician at a clinic where the
Mm-hmm.
patient's coming to you and you're prescribing, right? That should be your sales positioning. You're the person that's prescribing what kind of marketing strategy makes sense or not. Second question here, Monte is asking, if I don't have agency experience or marketing experience, what suite of high-level services can we offer that'll deliver results in ROI without doing websites, PPC, or SEO or Facebook advertising? I mean, it's just basic stuff, right? Like, DBRs, marketing automation, reviews, AI chat. Those are all things that you can check out on the YouTube channel. Josh, you want to add to that or?
Yeah, no, I would say, if you don't have the expertise, you can either partner up with a quality white label provider, or you could just say, hey, look, I'm going to focus on marketing automation and sell directly 1 or 2 features in high level.
Yeah. Someone's asking, what if I offered a 10% discount for the first month? What's your thought process on price change like that? That's
Yeah, I'm
just
not, I'm
lack
not a
of
big fan of
confidence, right?
discounting. I'm not a big fan of coming in and saying, hey, false pricing or anything like that. Know your value. The only caveat to that would be your first client or second client that you're trying to get a case study. You may be willing to say, hey, look, my program's $3,000, but what is it going to take to do something? Because I want to use you to cut my teeth and to prove my value and make you an advocate. That's the situation where you might do that. The only price negotiation I would do, and it's not like, hey, it's 1,500. Oh no, for you, since you don't want to do it, we'll bring it down like 10%. Potentially would be, look, and this would be kind of across the board. Setup fee for all this is $5,000, right? And that's for us to build a website and do the content and get everything launched. If we can decide to move forward sometime in the next 2 weeks, I'll waive the setup fee, right? That creates the urgency and also the takeaway there on that 2 week hot lead follow up. I would do that versus just 10% off the first month or something along those lines.
Yeah. Colin's asking if you are selling to local business, how do you address offering the same service to your client's competition or someone else in the market? Well, there's exclusivities that you can kind of map out depending on where you are. Sometimes you don't want to do that because you want to scale. But
Yeah.
what are your thoughts, Josh?
We started off offering exclusivity in the plumbing space. So we would say we're only going to work with one plumber in each market. And it creates urgency. Again, we're not just trying to sell in Miami, right? We're in Miami, but we're selling clients all over the world, really. And so there's more than enough opportunity by doing it that way. I also think that can become a trap, right? We do $7 million per year, and almost every market is sold, right? And there's been other agencies like Roofer Marketer, who I just mentioned, and online marketing that decided not to do exclusivity and said, look, it's a free market, right? There's going to be competition. We can work with you and somebody else in the same market, and you both win, right? And it's just a matter of your own personal confidence to have that conversation and say, shouldn't be a deal killer one way or the other.
Yeah. Last question since we said 12:45. I think this is a good one. Stephen Hackett is asking, rather than signing customers on a month-to-month basis, why not offer them long-term discount and sign them for 36 months and then say goodbye to churn, you know? I
If
think
you
I
could get
think
it, like, so I found that the longer the time horizon, the bigger commitment it is for the client. We started off in our agency month to month, where people would sign up month to month, and we had to prove our value. In about year three, we decided they're gonna commit to a year in advance, right? So our agreement says we're gonna do business for a year, and then it's gonna shift to month to month. That did help with retention because the mind frame of the person is this is going to be a long-term business relationship. Um, if you've got the confidence and you can close a 36-month commitment, more power to you, right?
yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. And I'll tell you, you're not saying goodbye to churn just because the length
Right.
of the
They're
contract
still
is
going to
long.
churn. Even if they signed up for 36 months, they could
Yeah,
still cancel
if you
out on you.
don't yeah, the most sensitive moment of account management is the first 30, 40 days.
Yeah.
That's when you have to win the entire contract. Within that first like 2 months, you want to deliver the best results as you possibly can, as quick as you can to impress them. And then you figure out ways to maintain that relationship, right? So just because you sign a 36-month contract doesn't mean they're going to just not ever cancel. It's not a commitment issue. They need attribution to be evident, right? You need to be able to show that because of my activities, I delivered this much revenue. If you can't do that reasonably, it just gets difficult and they cancel regardless, right? So,
Mm.
Josh, give us a preview for tomorrow. I know we're going to talk a lot more things tomorrow, but just give us a quick overview of what we can expect and we can close out for today.
Yeah, so tomorrow's going to be all around actually building the sales and marketing plan. So we've set the goals, we've dialed in the program and how we're going to sell it. Now it's like how we're going to fill the funnel. What are we going to do to market ourselves and to hit those KPIs that we've set up? So this should be the most valuable day of them all. It's day three. So be sure you plug in tomorrow. It will be a game changer.
Yeah, and I would recommend everyone, if you haven't, download the workbook, and there's a lot more in that workbook than what we covered. Okay. So go through it, get ahead of it. So by tomorrow, you've done a lot of homework and you're taking this 2025 pretty seriously in how you're wanting to grow your agency. But Josh, thank you again for day two. I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Great work, everybody.